Happy New Year. I hope your 2020 is starting off with a bang. Thank you for listening to Author Stories through 2019 and all of the previous years. We had an amazing year last year and looking forward to doing bigger and better things this year. Before we get into the interview, we're going to thank a couple of sponsors who make the show possible. Please give them a shout out and look them up on Amazon and make sure that you tell them that you appreciate their sponsorship of Author Stories. At the end of the show, we're going to have an audiobook excerpt from Richard Fox's The Ember War. This audio clip is narrated by the one and only Luke Daniels. You're going to love this series. I love it so much. And Richard has been a great supporter and sponsor of the show, and we're going to show him some love. Listen to the audiobook excerpt. You're going to love it, and be sure to go to audible.com to purchase it. If you're not an Audible subscriber, you can get a free book just by signing up for a free trial at audibletrial.com/Hank. You get a 30-day free trial. You get the free book. If you decide to cancel your Audible subscription, you get to keep the free book, and it doesn't cost you a single penny. audibletrial.com/Hank, and listen after the show for the clip from Richard Fox. We're so happy to have our friend Crystal Pico Watanabe as a sponsor of the show. Crystal is one of the best editors in the business, and she has just debuted a new service that I think you'll absolutely love and will help you to up your writing game. Pico's School of Wordcraft and Editing has just debuted, and the first course is called Properly Punctuating Dialogue. It's a mini course and can be completed in just about 20 minutes. It covers the basics of dialogue punctuation. Authors can get access to the new school and the course for free by signing up for Crystal's author newsletter, Notes from Pico. Go to picoshouse.com/newsletters. That's picoshouse.com/newsletters. More in-depth courses will be added in 2020. Make sure you don't miss a thing. picoshouse.com/newsletters. Unwilling Souls by Gregory D. Little. Books 1 and 2 are only 99 cents for a limited time. The gods are rightfully imprisoned, and Cess intends to keep them that way. But her terrorist father has other plans. Gregory D. Little's Unwilling Souls is a pulse-pounding chase through an epic fantasy world of adventure, sinister conspiracy, and a magical industrial revolution fueled by harvested human souls. Cess is the daughter of powerful parents who would very much like to kill one another and who therefore pretend she doesn't exist. An apprentice jailer of the gods, Cess spends her days learning to forge the tools needed to maintain the gods' prison. When her terrorist father attacks the prison on her 16th birthday, Cess is forced to flee after the secret of her parentage is revealed. Suddenly on the wrong side of the law, Cess realizes the very father who abandoned her may be the only one who can protect her. But some secrets are darker than parentage. On her way to find her father, Cess will uncover truths about her family and herself that will shatter her understanding of the world and risk the return of the gods themselves. Unwilling Souls and its sequel, Ungrateful God, are on sale now for only 99 cents. The third book of the series is coming early next year, so now is the perfect time to get up to speed. Unwilling Souls by Gregory D. Little. Books 1 and 2, only 99 cents for a limited time. Writers, I have an amazing tool to tell you about. A revolutionary writing tool for planning stories, Campfire Pro is what novelists need to go from the seed of an idea to a detailed plan that's ready to be executed. Complete your character design, create a timeline, and track your world building all in one place with our downloadable desktop app for Mac and PC. Without the annoying subscription model so many apps are using today. Visit campfiretechnology.com for special holiday pricing on Campfire Pro today. Who Wants to Love a Billionaire? Billionaires in New York, Book 1 by Laura Burton. Julie does not love being the center of attention. She makes dresses for those who do. But when Emily, her matchmaking friend, begs for a favor, Julie can't say no. It was supposed to be just one date. She never expected to kiss the guy, then fall head over heels for him. When threats start rolling in, it becomes clear someone will do whatever it takes to break them apart. Now she's in too deep, and walking away isn't an option. But with the paparazzi and drama involved, Julie cannot help but wonder, who wants to love a billionaire? Hollywood producer Harry Jackson is not an alpha male. He's goofy, sensitive, and will move mountains to make everyone happy. In fact, he requires a whole team of people to keep him from being robbed blind. Sometimes he even needs saving from his love of bad puns. But when an enemy threatens to jeopardize his chance at love, it's time to step up and fight. He's terrified, but the thought of losing Julie scares him more. Pick up Who Wants to Love a Billionaire? The Billionaires in New York, Book 1 by Laura Burton. Well, thanks for joining me again for the Author Stories podcast, where I bring you the story behind the stories and the storytellers. Today, I'm really excited to have Lars Kepler on the show. Lars is actually a husband and wife writing duo, Alexandra and Alexander Ahndoril, and they write under the pseudonym Lars Kepler. They have an amazing new book that's called The Rabbit Hunter, and when you're hearing this, it's available everywhere that books are sold. Welcome to the show, Alexander and Alexandra.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's I've been really looking forward to this interview. The new book, The Rabbit Hunter, is quite frankly probably one of the scariest books I've ever read. And I'm saying that kind of with a smile, because it's so good. I did not want to put the book down, but it genuinely had me kind of upset, which is a great reaction to have to a work of fiction. How long have you guys been writing together as a team?
Oh, it's actually 10 years now.
It is, yeah.
We started to write in 2009 was the year when The Hypnotist came. And before that, we were writers in our own names. But writing together has been the most wonderful and enjoyable thing we've ever done. And we just want to keep on.
But it wasn't that easy to start with, actually, to write together. It's even though you love each other, we've been married for many years and we have 3 daughters, but just sit down and write together, that's not easy. Actually, I think we laugh at it now, but we had a whole lot of arguments and fights in the beginning.
Yeah, it wasn't so easy to collaborate as we thought in the beginning. We had so many. Yeah, as you said, Alexander, we actually fought a lot before we found the style or the key to the collaboration.
And the key was to create a third author, to create Lars Kepler, because from the start we tried to write as Alexander and Alexandra, and that didn't work.
No, we are so different as individuals when it comes to writing.
I think because we really wanted this to work, because it's very lonely to be a writer, as you know. Most of us can't let anyone else into what you're doing until you finished a book, because if you do that, you might lose this specific spark you need for this specific story. So it's lonely, and since we love to do things together, we thought a collaboration would be a great thing. We actually tried to write a children's book from start, which is interesting. You think about where we landed.
Yeah, right. To write a children's book. We were just fighting and arguing all the time, and then we tried to write a play for the theater, because I had been an actress for many years, and Alexander had written many plays for the theater, but that didn't work either. So we were almost about to give up this dream of collaboration when we just got the idea of let's skip the egos of Alexander and Alexandra. Let's create a totally new author. And Lars Kepler was born. And then immediately we knew what stories he wrote, and the characters came to us, and it was just a creative flow.
Yeah, we gave him a lot of habits, different things. We have to drink, me and Alexander, we have to drink coffee in the morning just to wake up, but we came up with the idea that Lars Kepler, he don't like coffee. He must have tea and lemon biscuits. So we started with tea and lemon biscuits, and we had a whole lot of things.
Yeah, rituals, because we felt that we had found kind of a magic spark, and we were so afraid of losing that spark.
Yeah. And one of the things was the idea of keeping in secret, or us, the writers behind them. So from the start, we didn't tell anyone. Not our family, not our children, not our publishing house. Nobody knew. No,
the first manuscript, The Hypnotist, we actually sent it to our publishing house anonymously, just with a hotmail, Lars Kepler at hotmail. That was, yeah, we felt that maybe this magic would disappear if we were revealed. But then some kind of media hunt started, because The Hypnotist was sold to so many countries at the London Book Fair that year. It hadn't even been published yet. No. And then media suddenly woke up and said to themselves, who is this Lars Kepler?
This was a big question that summer of 2009 in Sweden. It was actually crazy. They had a famous criminologist who structured a profile on Lars Kepler in a live broadcast television, and the biggest tabloid newspaper had this 24-hour hotline for tip-offs from the general public, just to find us.
Yeah. So well, this is a crazy story, but we went out hiding then in our summer house on the Swedish west coast. We had a little house there, and we took our children and hid. And suddenly, one night, it was in August.
Yes, I remember, because it was dark.
Yeah. And we were going to bed, and suddenly we saw this flashlight in our garden coming closer and closer. And I just said to Alexandra, I'm not opening the door. No. So you did it. Yeah.
It was this knock on the door, and I opened, and it was two journalists, and they just told us to admit. And we did it.
Yeah, we were so, we had to say it. There was a big press conference, and we told Sweden that we were Lars Kepler, and we were afraid that the whole magic with writing together, that would have been destroyed, but it didn't happen, and we just had this strong feeling of Lars Kepler's voice and tones and stories.
Probably we just needed it for the start, to
be secret. Yeah. So now it's much better. It wasn't a very good idea to remain secret. Now we can talk to you, and we can be here in Dallas and do research and everything. So.
Well, I've heard that story of you guys going to your summer house and then seeing the torch or the flashlight in the garden, and I wondered if that was a real story or if that was, some people have fun with a biography or something and embellish and I wondered. I said this
is a real story.
Yeah, I was like, this is too much detail to be made up, but that is so wild that I love that that's a true story.
Yeah, and this tabloid newspaper, the next day, they published a big article with 10 proofs. Everybody read it.
Evidence on that we were Lars Kepler, and then we bought that newspaper and gave to our children and said, well, you can read here. And our oldest daughter, she was the only one who could read. They were so small then. So she read that to her little sisters, and then they came out to us and said, what have you been doing? Have you been writing a book together without telling us?
Oh, that's so funny. You mentioned earlier that the writing life can be very lonely, and Alexandra, I think you said that you don't normally let someone into the writing process until the very end, and it's so different when you're co-writing with someone, especially when you've created this third person that you're writing as. Both of you were writers before Lars Kepler was born. What types of novels were you writing?
Totally different. Yeah. I wrote 3 historical novels about important, how do you say, about 3 important dreams of humanity, so to speak, about a scientist, a saint, a Swedish saint, and a Swedish socialist politician. So totally different. And Alexander, he was a wonder boy. He started to write when he was 18 years.
Well, I wrote some kind of very postmodern novels from start, and then I became more traditionally, in some way. I wrote a gothic ghost story once, and I wrote one of my novels is about a Swedish director, Ingmar Bergman, and well, that was a big thing too in Sweden when it was published, because Ingmar Bergman loved the book from start, but then suddenly he changed his mind. I don't know why, but so in his last TV appearance, he told everybody that he hated the book. Well, but for me, it was just a story that communicated with real life, the life of Ingmar Bergman. So I'm sure I was still a postmodern writer.
Totally different.
Yeah.
But we have always read and loved crime fiction. We have always loved to see action movies and thrillers. So we have always been interested.
And it's a big tradition in Sweden, crime fiction, writing and reading crime fiction. It's everybody reads crime fiction in Sweden, actually.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think it is about Sweden in particular, and kind of this Scandinavian crime fiction phenomenon, if you will? What do you think it is about this seemingly perfect place that breeds a lot of these kinds of stories and the kind of people that love those kinds of stories? I mean, we all around the world, we love it, but there just seems to be a lot. It's very dense in the Scandinavian area.
Well, it gets very dark there. I think maybe that's one of the reasons, and there are few people there. You can travel for miles and you don't see anybody, because it's a very empty country as well. So you sit there alone in the darkness, and your fantasy starts to spin. I don't know.
And as you said, it's really safe societies, and I think maybe that's a good start if you want to scare somebody, because
well, I think
it should be enjoyable, not
terrible.
No, and then I think one answer is that the church has lost its power over Scandinavia. So you don't go to the church or to the priests or to the Bible when you want to understand the dark sides of humanity, the reasons behind everything. You go to books, you read fiction, you discuss, and crime fiction is of course entertainment, but crime fiction is also suited for serious discussions about the society and the failures of the society and the failures of people.
Moral dilemmas. Yes, and I think also that it's a part of mankind to having to fantasize about the most terrifying things that could happen, and this fantasy is fiction in this case. And I think, as we all said, that Sweden is so safe, so we can allow us very dark fantasies in a way.
Also, I don't think it's not just about darkness. It's to us it's a way to take control over your fears. So it's a positive journey. It's a journey from chaos to order, from injustice to justice, from questions to answers, and that's I think it's a way to handle fear and the dark side of it. mankind.
Well, and I think that's what we want. We want to see kind of the worst case scenario played out from the comfort of our own homes and our nice comfy chair where we read, but not just to see the darkness, but to see some sense made of the darkness. And like you said, from chaos to order. That's what we really want. When you're planning out a new book, are you thinking of not only just a horrible thing that you can come up with, but how to take the readers through that journey to making sense of what happens?
Absolutely. For us, it's an optimistic genre. Absolutely, because this is what you do. You dive into those dark labyrinths and then you come out in the light again. And it's kind of a guarantee. You have to have this contract, I think, with the readers, because otherwise it would be like real word. It would be worrying and depressing in a way.
Yeah, because when you read the newspapers, you see all these horrible things, but you never ever get any answers. And I think we need fiction for that. And but of course we scare ourselves and each other. Alexandra, she always get nightmares in the middle of the process. I remember when we wrote our first book and you started with your nightmares, and we thought, oh wow, this is not healthy. But when we came to the end of the book, the nightmare stopped. And
now we feel it's a good sign. Yes, when the nightmare starts, we know that now we are touching something real, our real fears.
Wow, that's amazing. What is it about the entity of Lars Kepler that helps you shift gears? You said that you tried to write together before, and it always caused strife and arguments. Even tried writing a children's book, but then you were still coming to the table, so to speak, as Alexander and as Alexandra. Yet when Lars steps in, you both are able to channel into the person of Lars, and something completely different comes out. Did you know when you created Lars that this was going to be the kinds of stories that Lars would tell?
Yeah, I think immediately when he was born, his stories were born with him. It was kind of, I don't know, it all happened at the same time.
But we don't know how it works. We are happy that it works.
Yeah, true.
So we think maybe ourselves like easily tricked or fooled, because we still, me and Alexandra, writing, but when we say it's Lars Kepler, we can do it. So.
Well, as you said, you used the word channel in or something. Yeah. Maybe it's like that.
Yeah, because we have this style, and it's not the style we have when we write separately. So Lars Kepler has this specific style, and we know it both by heart, and we just start and sit side by side and write, and it's a flow. Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the characters. They were there also.
That was going to be my next question. Were the characters born with him?
Yeah.
About characters, or
you have to ask what was the question?
I was saying, were the characters did the characters come along with Lars?
Yeah.
You know, the character of Joona and Saga.
We don't have a really good story about them, because they just came and we saw them and we started to, ask them questions and involve them in the story and try to explore them. It's like they were there from start. Joona with his Finnish background and the underdog position due to that, and Saga with her dark past.
And her, well, maybe, Saga, both Saga and Joona are characters that we are deeply interested in, and we still don't know everything about them. And I think that's why we love to write about them. We want to come closer and closer. learn more, and maybe we know everything about them, they stop interest us. I don't know, but they are still enigmas in a way.
Yeah, because our idea for this series is that each book is a standalone, and you can start with the Rabbit Hunter, and it will work because we introduce new characters to each book also. But if you read all of the books, or several of them, you will find that they form kind of an epic story about Joona and Linna, Linna and Saga Bauer, and but you don't have to do that. But for us, it works like that. It's an epic story about them, and as Alexandra said, that story comes to an end.
I hope not.
But we haven't planned an end yet.
No, and I think everybody can start to read the Rabbit Hunter and still get the whole picture in a way. That is at least our intention, that the reader should be able to just pick up one of our books and start to get to know them.
Yeah. It's complicated because you want the reader to be able to start with any book, but you don't want to spoil the earlier books. So it's a tricky.
It's a delicate balance there.
Well, I know that Joona is kind of the main protagonist, and the series is the Joona Linna series. But Saga is such an important character. Can you talk a little bit about the tension and how these two characters work together, and how important it is to have both of their minds and the way they approach solving mysteries almost as a team?
Yeah. Well, they are kind of like best friends or sister and brother, and we can't really see them as love interests to each other. But many readers have come to us and said, when will they get together? We are not ready for that, at least yet.
But Saga, she works at the Swedish Security Service, while Joona is an investigator at the National Operations Department. But it's under the same roof, so to speak. So they come to work together a lot, and they really respect each other.
They are very different, but they respect each other profoundly, and I think they both have issues, so to speak. Joona he has this past that is haunting him, and Saga, she has another kind of haunting that comes from inside of herself. She has hidden her own madness in a dark room inside of her.
Yeah, and because her mother
she was mentally ill.
Yeah. But then Saga has, of course, this problem being a woman, and as police, it's complicated and it holds her back, while Joona comes from a Finnish family, and that holds him back. So I think they recognize each other in that too. They have been forced to work twice as hard as anyone else.
Yeah, and for me, when I think of them, they both have this glow inside, a kind of a fire that keeps on burning, that keeps them strive on in a way. And I really, really enjoy writing about them because I'm still so curious about them, who they are, who they really are.
Your books are meticulously researched, and if you read something in one of your books, you can guarantee there's a real-world equivalent, or if there's a process, a procedure, or a specific place, you can guarantee that you're getting an accurate description of that place. Will you talk a little bit about your research process? And I know you guys are in Dallas right now, and you said that you were there doing research. How important is it to be in the spot that you're going to write about, or to really convey the realities of the way the criminal justice system works, or the prison system? Could you talk a little bit about that?
I think
it's very important.
Yeah, with time for
Authenticity.
Yeah.
That difficult word.
Yeah.
It means everything.
Of course, you can Google a lot, but it's not the same as, really visit a prison, a high security prison, and walk the corridors. The feeling. It's we even try out fighting scenes together just to be sure of all the movements.
Because it's also a difficult thing to write, because you need to be clear of the movements, and research is, as you understand now, very, very important to us.
And it's not just research. I think it's part of the creative process.
Exactly.
Because when you do research, you will find things you would never find if you just Google it. And when you find it, it will push your story in a new direction. And we try always to be open to those
impulses.
Impulses, yeah, because a story must be alive as long as you work on it.
Yeah, and when we actually went to this high security prison, Sweden's biggest prison for the most disturbed prisoners, and I will never forget to be inside an isolation cell and feeling that there has been a body here, a certain scent of a certain human being that has been there. The loneliness and all the fingerprints around the handles and where you turn on and off the lights. It was you can always use your imagination, but as Alexandra said, to find a new direction in the scene you have been thinking about, the scene that you are researching for. That is great.
And of course, when it comes to police work and forensics, it must be the real thing, because that's a responsibility. Of course, we speed up the story because an ordinary homicide investigation can go on for several years and include like hundreds of police officers. So we try to focus on the work of Joona and Saga and push up the tempo a bit, but it's possible work all the time.
Your new book, The Rabbit Hunter, is about a serial killer and their pursuit to solve this crime and to apprehend this murderer. When you start thinking of a new book, how does it usually begin for you? Is it are you thinking of a situation to put Joona in? Are you thinking maybe about a story that's been in the news and how could we kind of explore this topic? Where does that first kernel of the idea come from?
Well, let's start from another angle, because for us it's like this. When we finish a book, we feel totally empty, and we feel that we have given everything, and there will never be another idea or another story, and
not even a sentence.
No, so we are just depressed, and we start to clean our home, because we have, in the end of the writing process, we just let everything go and just write. So we have a lot of dishes and laundry, and and then suddenly after a day or two, a new idea comes up, and suddenly we start to talk again. So far, it has always been this pattern of being empty after finishing the book and then doing something boring, and then suddenly we start to talk.
So it's always born through our conversations, because we start to talk about things that bother us, and suddenly we think, well, this might be part of the heart of the story. We try to explore that new thought, and we find new situations, possible situations for Joona and Saga. And
is it complex enough?
Yeah, and we try to develop it. So we do a lot of plotting when we have the new idea, and that goes on for several months.
Yeah, that's a process that is becoming more and more crucial for us. The plotting, we have understood that it's the best thing for us when we have the whole plot. When we know everything, we usually fill a wall with post-it notes with different little scenes.
Scenes, key scenes, and so we can follow each character's line through the story, and we stand in front of that wall and dream up the story again and again, and move the pieces of paper around and discuss. I think maybe this is especially important when you are two writers, because we have to write the same story in some way. Not exactly, of course, but we have to understand the story both in the same way. But of course, you can do a lot of planning, but as soon as you start to write, the characters become alive and they do whatever they want. They don't care about the notes on the wall. But that's the magic.
Yeah, when you just have to hang on and write in this flow. So, where the ideas come from, I don't know. I have no good answer there, but
we never use real cases.
No.
It doesn't work for us.
It's because with real cases there are real victims.
Real suffering, yeah. And so I think because for us crime fiction is also entertainment, and real suffering, we hate violence.
Yeah.
So real suffering, that's not entertaining for us personally. So
no, I think the key word for us is empathy. We want to. I think reading and writing is all about empathy. To be able to understand a choice somebody makes, not necessary to excuse that or say that was the right choice, but to understand.
Yeah, it comes both victims and perpetrators. We must understand them.
Yeah, and sometimes the writing process is so distressing that we have to stand up and walk away from the computers because we get so scared or we start to cry, and it's very emotional.
Yeah, sounds like we're totally crazy, but it's the way it works for us.
Yeah.
Alexandra, you mentioned a minute ago that you're writing this book together, so that has to bring its own challenges. How do you work out the mechanics of writing a book? As two different people, who is contributing what, and are there rules that you have set up with each other? And I'll take this, you take that. What does that look like, the collaboration process?
The idea is to share everything. We do all the research together, and we do the writing together. So when the plotting is completed, we just sit down side by side with one computer each, and then we're emailing text to each other. It sounds silly because we sit side by side, but we email each other, and we're continuing each other's text and filling in gaps, changing things, just continue. Then we email again and again, and we continue like that. So when we finish a book, there's not a single sentence in it that one of us has written alone, because we do this emailing all the time. And I think the great thing is with this way to work is that we get it's new input all the time, so you never slow down, because as soon as if I write a scene, sometimes I just hear the dialogue and I start with that, because I don't have to take care of the rest if it's a dialogue day for me. So I write the dialogue, and then I email Alexandra the dialogue, and an hour later I get the text back, and suddenly the two characters are running in deep snow while they're having this dialogue, and and it works.
Yeah, it's very inspiring. As you said, it works for us. It's in a strange way. We never write alternative chapters or divide the characters between us. We have to share everything.
I love that. Are you guys talking about the book as you're sitting there side by side with your computers?
Yeah, well, sometimes Alexander actually whispers. It's when he has his dialogue day. It's kind of scary, though.
Oh, that's so funny.
We try not to peek on each other's screens, and we try to keep silent if it's a creative situation, because then we get this electric feeling in our study, and we just continue. But of course, then when we go to shop for dinner or cook dinner or whatever, we talk. We talk about the story all the time. It's really annoying for our children, but
oh man, these books have been international bestsellers and have found a very wide audience all over the world. These books are very Swedish books. These characters, the settings are very much anchored in your home land. Were you surprised at all that these books have found such a wide audience all over the world?
Oh, well, it's of course it's the dream that every writer has, to have readers, and that is fantastic. And so it's a difficult question to answer, because me and Alexandra, we are people that we never dare to how do you say, take things for granted. So we feel very humble and happy of having readers, and because we love to meet our readers. We have this feeling that people who like our books, it must be the best people in the world, because we share the same love for these stories, these dramatic stories.
Yes. We have tried to write what we would love to read ourselves. I think that's the basic.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it went very fast with our first book, The Hypnotist, and I can't. Still, I have to, stop sometimes and think, this is for real. We have all these readers, and it's wonderful and crazy at the same time, because as I was talking about before, I've been a writer for 30 years, and Lars Kepler has only existed 10 years. So the major part of my writing was for a smaller audience, and that's all right. As long as you have readers, it's
the meaning of writing. It's fantastic.
But to reach the whole world, that's interesting, because sometimes you wonder about. You read them in Australia and Brazil and China and the States, and it's quite different societies, and it still works. And I think it's because it's just about
it's universal
people.
Stories,
People try. The characters are ordinary characters trying to survive, solve mysteries, and it's probably universal.
Yeah, they are universal stories, that's for sure. I know that you guys have 3 daughters and have a very happy family, and you're just regular parents like a lot of us are. But have your children read any of your Lars Kepler books?
Oh, yeah. Well, that was kind of. We had it coming, because they said from the beginning, we want to read your books, and then we said, no, you have to be older, and in Sweden, when you are 15, you can see any movie. That's kind of when you can take part of any stories in Sweden. So we said, you have to be 15 before you can read our books. And then suddenly they became 15. We still have a small one. She's only 14 years old. But the other ones... it was difficult to let them read.
But
felt
their
awkward.
friends read our books, and their friends' parents, and their teachers, and all that. And so we have to say, okay, let's do this. But it was...
Oh, I actually felt that it was the most embarrassing thing was the sex scenes in the books. I felt that.
Yeah, we have to say, well, you know, this is not about mom and dad.
No.
This is just...
There are really strange scenes here.
And they're like, sure.
They were like, you know, we grew up with the internet, and I don't know if that would scare me more. I don't know. But, well.
But nowadays, actually, our middle daughter is our first reader. When we finish the script, she reads it and tells us what she thinks, and we have to rewrite, and then we send the manuscript to our publishing house.
She's a very good reader. She always has something really good to say.
That's fantastic. The new book, The Rabbit Hunter, is, when you're hearing this, available everywhere. Now, can you give us a little hint as to what Joona and Saga are up to in this book?
Well.
Complicated.
Well, it all starts with a nursery rhyme about 10 little rabbits that one by one fall down in hell. And this rhyme is the last thing the victims hear. It's the rabbit hunter that haunts them one by one.
Yeah, but so...
Joona is in prison when it starts?
Yeah, Joona is in prison when it starts. And the main character is called Rex, and he's what you call it, the TV chef.
Yeah.
He's a celebrity chef. And he's a really, really complicated man. He lives together with his son. And
well, he tries to. He takes care of his son. He hasn't taken any responsibility for his family ever, and now he tries to be a grown-up, which is
not that easy for him.
No.
But he suddenly finds himself in the middle of a thriller.
Yes, exactly. And it was it was a very nice writing process to have a chef as the main new character, because then we had to do a lot of food research, and we had a lot of really nice dinners.
We learned sous vide cooking, and we learned a lot about cooking. So it was a good backside.
But we feel that The Rabbit Hunter is one of our best books, and you come so close to Saga Bauer here, and she's such an interesting character, and we really like to be with her. And the same thing with Joona. He isn't a policeman even when the book starts. He is in prison, and then this rabbit hunter haunts the police, and they cannot catch him or understand what he does. So one day Joona and Linna gets this visit to the prison, and an offer that he can't refuse. If he starts to help the police, he gets his freedom back. He might even become a police again.
Well, I love this book. I'm a big fan of all that you guys are doing. If people are just learning about you, is there a place online where they can connect with you and dig into your back catalog and follow along with news?
Oh, absolutely. We're on Instagram, and we're on Facebook, and we also have a homepage.
LarsKepler.com.
Yeah, so, and we love to meet our readers on Instagram. Absolutely. We're going to try to, connect. Yeah, hear from Dallas. Absolutely. And, we love to communicate with our readers.
Yes,
just contact us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll put links to the website and to the Instagram, and of course to the new book, The Rabbit Hunter, in the show notes of this episode. Alexander and Alexandra, this has been so much fun talking. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much. And good luck with everything.
Stay tuned now for an audiobook excerpt from Richard Fox's The Ember War.
The near future. Humanity's only hope of survival entered the solar system at nearly the speed of light. The probe slowed as the sun's heliosphere disrupted the graviton wave it rode in on from the abyss of deep space. Awakened by the sudden deceleration, the probe absorbed the electromagnetic spectrum utilized by its target species and assessed the technological sophistication of the sole sentient species on Earth. The probe adjusted its course to take it into the system's primary. If the humans couldn't survive, with its help, what was to come, then the probe would annihilate itself. There would be no trace of it for the enemy, and no chance of humanity's existence beyond the time it had until the enemy arrived. The probe analyzed filed patents, military expenditures, birth rates, mathematical advancement, and space exploration. The first assessment fell within the margin of error of survival and extinction for humanity. The probe's programming allowed for limited, autonomous decision-making, choice being a rare luxury for the probe's class of artificial intelligence. The probe found itself in a position to choose between ending its mission in the sun's fire and a mathematically improbable defense of humanity, and the potential compromise of its much larger mission. Given the rare opportunity to make its own decision, the probe opted to dither. In the week it took to pass into Jupiter's orbit, the probe took in more data. It scoured the internet for factors to add to the assessment, but the assessment remained the same. Unlikely, but possible. By the time it shot past Mars, the probe still hadn't made a decision. As the time to adjust course for Earth or continue into the Sun approached, the probe conducted a final scan of cloud storage servers for any new information, and found something interesting. While the new information made only a negligible impact on the assessment, the probe adjusted course to Earth. It hadn't traveled all this way for nothing. In the desert south of Phoenix, Arizona, it landed with no more fanfare than a slight thump and a few startled cows. Then it broke into the local cell network and made a call. Mark Ibarra awoke to his phone ringing at max volume, playing a pop ditty that he hated with vehemence. He rolled off the mattress that lay on the floor and crawled on his hands and knees to where his cell was recharging. His roommate, who paid the majority of their rent and got to sleep on an actual bed, grumbled and let off a slew of slurred insults. Mark reached his cell and slapped at it until the offending music ended. He blinked sleep from his eyes and tried to focus on the caller's name on the screen. The only people who'd call at this ungodly hour were his family in Basque country, or maybe Jessica in his applied robotics course wanted a late-night study break. The name on the screen was Answer Me. He closed an eye and reread the name. It was way too early, or too late, depending on one's point of view, for this nonsense. He turned the ringer off and went back to bed. Sleep was about to claim him when the phone rang again, just as loudly as last time, but now with a disco anthem. "Seriously?" his roommate slurred. Mark declined the call and powered the phone off. He flopped back on his bed and curled into his blanket. To hell with my first class, he thought. Arizona State University had a lax attendance policy, one which he'd abused for nights like this. The cell erupted with big band music. Mark took his head out from beneath the covers and looked at his phone like it was a thing possessed. The phone vibrated so hard that it practically danced a jig on the floor, and the screen flashed Answer Me over and over again as music blared. "Dude," said his roommate, now sitting up in his bed. Mark swiped the phone off the charging cord, and the music stopped. The caller's name undulated with a rainbow of colors, and an arrow appeared on the screen, pointing to the button he had to press to answer the call. When did I get this app? He thought. Mark sighed and left the bedroom, meandering into the hallway bathroom with the grace of a zombie. The battered mattress he slept on played hell with his back and left him stiff every morning. Dropping his boxers, he took a seat on the toilet and answered the call, determined to return this caller's civility with some interesting background noise. "What?" he murmured. "Mark Ibarra. I need to see you." The voice was mechanical, asexual in its monotone. "Do you have any friggin' idea what time it is? Wait, who the hell is this?" "You must come to me immediately. We must discuss the mathematical proof you have stored in document title This Can't Be Right. Doc. Mark shot to his feet. The boxers around his ankles tripped him up, and he stumbled out of the bathroom and fell against the wall. His elbow punched a hole in the drywall, and the cell clattered to the floor. He scooped the phone back up and struggled to breathe as a sudden asthma attack came over him. How? He couldn't finish his question until he found his inhaler in the kitchen, mere steps away in the tiny apartment. He took a deep breath from the inhaler and felt the tightness leave his lungs. That someone knew of his proof was impossible. He'd finished it earlier that night and had encrypted it several times before loading it into a cloud file that shouldn't have been linked to him in any way. "How do you know about that?" he asked. "You must come to me immediately. There is little time. Look at your screen," the robotic voice said. His screen changed to a map program, displaying a pin in an open field just off the highway, connecting Phoenix to the suburb of Maricopa. "Come. Now." Mark grabbed his keys. An hour later, his jeans ripped from scaling a barbed wire fence, Mark was surrounded by desert scrub. The blue of the morning rose behind him, where his beat-up Honda waited on the side of the highway. With his cell to his ear, Mark stopped and looked around before deciding how to continue. Spiked ocotillo plants looked a lot like benign mesquite trees in the darkness. A Native American casino in the distance served as his North Star, helping him keep his bearings. "You're not out here, are you? I'm being punked, aren't I?" he asked the mysterious caller. "You are 9.26 meters to my east-southeast. Punk, decayed wood, used as tinder. Are you on fire?" the caller said. Mark rolled his eyes. This wasn't the first time the caller had used the non-standard meanings of words during what passed as conversation between the two. Mark had tried to get the caller to explain how he knew about his theorem and why they had to meet in the middle of the desert. The caller had refused to say anything. He would only reiterate that Mark had to come quickly to see him, chiding him every time Mark deviated from the provided driving directions. "If you're so close, why can't I see you?" he asked. He took a few steps in what he thought was a northwesterly direction and squished into a cow patty.